I now recognize Mr. Griffith for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Barra, you have indicated that the not having a new part number when the part was changed in 2006 is not acceptable.
Correct.
Is that correct? Yes.
That's correct.
And I guess it's hard to figure that somebody would have just done that by accident and that there had to be a reason, because that was a breach of protocol, wasn't it?
I don't think there's an acceptable reason to do that.
Okay. And while there may not be an acceptable reason, you would have to acknowledge that a reason in somebody's mind, while not acceptable, might be that it's actually harder to track the problem with the old part when you have an improved new part that's put in its place. Isn't that correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. And while you have indicated that you did not know the individual name of the person who made that decision, do you know whose job title it was or in whose chain of command it was to make the decision not to create a new part number for that part?
I don't. It'd be within the engineering organization, but I will learn that from the investigation, and we will take appropriate action. And
would that engineering department have been under your chain of command at some point in your tenure with GM?
Since February of 2011.
But it never got to you, that nobody ever brought this to your attention?
No, it did not.
All right, I appreciate that. I do have this question, and I think that the answer probably is that your investigation will reveal this, but it is somewhat concerning that while the trial lawyer that uncovered this may be very savvy and his expert might be pretty sharp, you all have sharp people working at GM as well, do you not?
I believe we do.
And it's one of those questions that I'm sure your investigation will uncover, but why didn't your team of engineers connect the dots and figure out that when the ignition slips into that auxiliary position, the airbags won't function properly?
Congressman, those are the questions I want to answer, and as I've said, it's taken way too long, and we will learn from this, and we will make changes, and we will hold people accountable.
And not only holding people accountable, you were asked earlier, and I know that you're in a tough spot on that, as to what kind of liability GM will end up accepting, because there's legal liability and moral liability, and you've said that. One of the questions that I would have, it would have been a whole lot easier just to have actually listed these liabilities in the bankruptcy, wouldn't it? Would it not? It would have been easier to do it in the bankruptcy instead of having to come out now, wouldn't it?
The best thing in the world would be as soon as we find a problem, we fix it, and it doesn't exist in the marketplace and doesn't affect our customers and doesn't create tragedies.
And here's one of the things that concerns me. Have you been given any estimates yet by Mr. Feinberg or others as to what a best case, worst case scenario is on your civil liabilities?
We have just been in initial conversations with Mr. Feinberg. I believe we will work through him to evaluate the situation over the next 30 to 60 days.
Has anybody else given you a best case or worst case scenario over liability issues related to this problem?
There's been a lot of estimates done in the public, but none given specifically to me.
Okay. Would those liability issues have negatively impacted the prospects of either a bailout by the federal government or, prior to the bailout, the people who were lending you money to keep GM afloat with its heavy liabilities already existing? Would not the additional liabilities that would have come forward by this problem have had the potential to dissuade private investors or the federal government from giving cash to GM?
As I look at it, as soon as we identify an issue and fix it, then there aren't liabilities, or the liabilities are contained. And that's what as we look at problems as we go forward, we want to fix them as soon as we can. And if there's a safety issue, we're going to make the change, make the right investment, and accept that.
But in the real world of business, if there's a new set of liabilities that come onto the page that weren't there before, it's harder to get money from both public and private sources. Isn't that true?
I think it depends. It depends on the situation. So it's a general question. I don't feel appropriate commenting.
All right. I appreciate that. Let me ask this last question. When this issue first came up, the corresponding problem resolution tracking system report document identified the issue as severity 3. What does that mean?
I'm sorry.
It said severity 3 I'm referencing back to some of the documents you've given and that your folks have given us. And the initial assessment in 2004, 2005, when your problem resolution tracking system report came out, it related this problem as being severity 3. What does that mean?
I don't have a specific definition for that.
Can you get one for us?
I can.
I appreciate that, and I yield back.
Can I ask a clarifying question for what Mr. Griffith was saying? Did GM purposely and willfully negotiate during the bankruptcy issues or in the process of obtaining the loans? Did they purposely withhold any information that they may have known about pending lawsuits or things that would be emerging in the future about the Cobalt or other cars?
I am not aware. I personally did not withhold any information. I am not aware, but I can't speak to every single person.
Thank you. Mr. Welsh, you're recognized for 5 minutes.